Hey, this is Dr. Duncan McEwen of Wellness Psychiatric Associates in Durham, North Carolina. Welcoming you to the first in a number of videos we'll be putting up on the web. These videos are inspired by observing the lives of our patients, and they're also inspired by interventions we come up with to try to be helpful to people. This first video is going to be a little bit offbeat. It's going to have to do with tying string, believe it or not. And what occurred was, as a kid I used to have a passing interest in tying knots. It's not something I ever really pursued, but then I have an app now on my phone with hundreds of different knots and an animation to tell me how to tie them. So I started playing around with that. Coincident with that, I was also loosely involved with a group of women who had been mandated by DSS to be in a substance abuse program and group. These women were in serious trouble in their lives because of their substance abuse problems. And I was thinking about them at the same time that I was learning the knots, and noticed that some of the issues that I was coming up with in my knot tying experiments contained messages that would be useful and that I'd like to convey to patients of mine. So without further ado, we'll get into demonstrating these knots. There will be 3 of them, and I'll kind of lead the way a little bit by giving you a forecast of what each knot has to do with. The first knot is a very simple knot, but at the same time it's very, very elegant and ingenious. And so the message coming behind that knot for me was that sometimes issues that are very difficult to solve in life, in terms of finding a solution, are easy to implement once you get to that solution. The second knot is called the friendship knot. Actually, it's formerly called the lover's knot, but I thought it was much more useful to generalize it into friendship. And what this knot will illustrate metaphorically is that good and surprising things can come out of human relationships. Finally, the third knot is a very difficult knot. It's called the bottle sling knot, and I'll introduce it as the mother of all knots. With this knot, I was struggling to figure out a way to learn to tie it. It was so difficult. And what I learned was that this complex task was made much easier by breaking it down into simple stages, learning those stages and then letting them build upon one another to come up with the final solution. So let's get on to looking at some of these knots. To tie, it's called the sheet bend. It's a very simple knot to do, very effective. It's designed to attach 2 strings together, 2 pieces of rope together. It's considered so essential that the guru, the guy who wrote the definitive book on knots, Mr. Ashley, back in the 40s, made this the first knot that he illustrated in his book. So I'll show you how it's done. So here are your 2 ends. And the first thing you do is you just make a half loop with one of the ends, and then you run the other end through that loop, go underneath the loop, and then you cinch it without going through the original loop again, but you just cinch it back on itself like this, and voila, you've got your knot. And since this is the first knot we've done, I'll make a few comments about well-formed knots. The first thing is they tend to be elegant in their appearance. Note that there's a symmetry to it. There's also a simplicity. It really doesn't have any extra loops or any unnecessary garbage going along with it. And probably most important, it actually works. I'm tugging pretty hard at this right now. There's no way this knot is going to give way. So anyhow, that's our first knot. Okay, if the theme of the first knot was easy to do, hard to find, this knot is called the friendship knot, and we'll see what emerges from that as we do it. So the first thing you do with this knot is you just make a simple loop. This is the kind of little knot you would have made as a kid. And what you do with this loop is you take the end, you run it through again,
and then you just do kind of a simple loop over this other guy. And so what you end up doing is creating this kind of eyeglass sort of thing, and that's why it's called the friendship knot. You can sort of display it more classically like this. So you've got two guys who are linked together, and then what we're going to do is do a little hand holding exercise between them. This guy's going to reach out and grab the hand of his friend, and his friend on this side is going to reciprocate, and we'll see what emerges from that. So here's the hand holding going on here, and they've grabbed one another's hands, and we'll just kind of straighten this out, try to make it pretty, and voila, this is called a shamrock. So the theme coming out of this friendship knot is that when you've got a friendship, surprising and good things can emerge from it, and pay attention to the quality of your relationships. They really matter. Okay, this is the mother of all knots. Believe it or not, this is the knot that inspired this whole series. It's called a bottle sling knot for obvious reasons. When I first was working on it though, what came to my mind was bottle stopper knot, and that was what led me to think of the ladies in the substance abuse group that I talked about in the introduction. Let me show you how to do this knot. First, let me hand this to my assistant. Thank you very much. And we'll get a string out and see if we can do this. So this is a knot that teaches us that to do something complicated, it makes sense to break it down into manageable stages. You won't learn how to tie this knot, or for that matter almost any of the knots I've shown, by watching these videos, but I'll leave some links where you can find out how to do them if you'd like. So this complex knot starts with a simple loop maneuver. It's strange. It's not really a knot at all that I've tied so far. I mean, nothing holds together, but it's a preparatory move. And what you can see is this is going to be the sling, and by my hand is the loop that's eventually going to go around the neck of the bottle. And so what I need to do is hold this structure roughly in place, and I take this end here and I begin to weave it. And what I'm going to do is weave it around the future handle. And let's see if I can visualize all of this. And one of the things that happens with knots that's really neat is because they're symmetrical, oftentimes you can figure out what to do with one side of the knot by looking at what's already happened to the other side. And I can just show this to you maybe right here, that there's a pattern here that I'm going to duplicate on the other side as I do this weave. Let's see if we can pull this off. So I dive down in here, and it looks like then I come around, got to grab this, come around here, and then following the path, the guide of the other string. Alright, so it looks like we've got the structure here of this knot, and let's see if it can start to take form for you. Open it up a little bit, and there it is. So here's my sling, and here's the structure that will go around the bottle. And it's really neat because when you tighten this down, I'd put the bottle through the middle there and I'd tighten this, it cinches very tightly. It's actually very difficult to get off the bottle once you get it in place. So again, this is a knot that when I first looked at it, it looked like it was going to be impossible to ever learn it. And so what I did, I started just breaking it down into segments, learned how to do the shorter steps, and then put them all together. So that's the final glorious knot, the bottle sling knot, which I accidentally called in my own mind the bottle stopper knot. And with that, we'll have a few words of conclusion.
Here I am again in full frame, and now that it's at the conclusion of this video, I wanted to say a few remarks in summation. And I guess the way I want to do this is speak directly to those ladies who've inspired me to do this video on knots, and hopefully talking directly to them to speak to a wider audience. Ladies, you're in this group struggling to change your lives, and it's a very serious proposition. And here I am talking about knots and a trivial hobby. So what's the connection? I think it comes together maybe in the final knot I tied. As I look back on this video, it seemed to me that there was a slightly negative tone to it, in the sense that it emphasizes a lot the work of struggling with life, the work of living right. And you know, the motto of our substance abuse program is getting clean as a pleasure-seeking enterprise. So we don't want people to get clean just to do the right thing, to be a goody-goody. That's not what it's about at all. We genuinely believe that in getting clean, you're opening up possibilities to have more pleasure in life than you could ever have through a substitute like a drug of abuse. And this last knot is in part a metaphor for this, because that knot is very hard to tie, and when I was learning to tie it, it was at times very frustrating. And when I finally mastered it, though, pleasure circuits in my brain that are there to reward me when I accomplish something began to ring, and I sensed a degree of pleasure. And the same thing will happen to you too. If you continue to wrestle with life and begin to get an inner sense of competence and mastery in being able to handle situations, you'll get a sense of pleasure, of being able to be effective, just like an athlete gets a sense of pleasure when he or she masters something difficult, even though the task sometimes in the middle of an event is a struggle. So you balance that with being able to effectively wrestle with life, and then on the other side of being able to get life enough under control so you have more and more opportunities to have nice moments to enjoy. You'll be able to stimulate your pleasure circuits with the natural highs in life. You'll be able to have a sense of reward in effectively dealing with life. Ultimately, it's all about pleasure. So anyhow, you are working very hard in this group, and you can't know how much we mental health professionals respect patients like you, especially those of you who really get serious about what you're doing. It's an impressive task, and I wish you all the luck in the world. And we'll be doing more videos that we'll be putting up on the website, all of which hopefully will have been inspired by our patients. And we look forward to, thank you very much for listening to this video, and we look forward to your comments and participation. Thanks a lot. See you next time.